You walk down any pharmacy aisle and it's just a wall of promises, right? Better memory, stronger bones, a healthier heart. Dietary supplements, they feel like this easy answer to all our health worries. But with all that noise, what's the real story? Okay, let's dive in and try to cut through some of that confusion.
First off, let's just talk about the sheer scale of this. In the United States alone, the dietary supplement market is a $60 billion a year industry. I mean, think about that. That is a massive, massive investment we're all making in our health, one bottle at a time.
And really, that leads us to the big question of this entire explainer. When we pick up that bottle, what are we actually buying? Is it proven science? Is it just clever marketing? Or is it something in between? Let's find out.
To start, let's look at why supplements are so appealing in the first place. I mean, sometimes the science looks incredibly promising. It feels like it's offering a really simple solution to a super complex problem, like, say, cognitive decline.
Take this, for example, a huge meta-analysis. That's where scientists combine the data from a bunch of studies to get a clearer picture. Looked at something called the Cosmos trial. And the headline result? It looks like taking a daily multivitamin genuinely helps with overall brain function and memory in older adults. I mean, that sounds amazing, doesn't it?
And the effect wasn't small either. It was actually pretty powerful. The researchers figured out that the benefit to overall brain function was basically like turning back the clock on cognitive aging by 2 full years. An effect that big is exactly the kind of clear, positive result people are hoping for.
So case closed, right? Science gives a big thumbs up and we should all be taking multivitamins for our brains? Well, like with most things in science, the full story, it's just a little more complicated than that.
Because as soon as you zoom out from that one promising study, you find yourself in what feels like a scientific maze. And this is where those exciting headlines can be really, really deceiving, because the tiny details, they matter immensely.
For a perfect example of this, let's look at omega-3s. They're incredibly popular for heart health. 2 huge, well-funded clinical trials, called Reduce-IT and Strength, set out to answer the same basic question, and they came back with totally opposite answers.
Okay, now look closely here, because this is where it gets really interesting. 2 tiny details changed everything. The Reduce-IT trial, the one that was successful, used a super pure form of one specific omega-3 called EPA. But the Strength trial used a mix of EPA and another one, DHA. And get this, look at the placebos. Reduce-IT used mineral oil, which some people argue might have actually been a little harmful, making the EPA look even better. Strength used corn oil. So you have different ingredients, different placebos, and you get completely different results. Wild, right?
But the complexity doesn't even stop there. Let's look at another super popular category, NAD+ boosters, which are all the rage in the anti-aging world. A recent human trial directly compared 3 different but very similar compounds that are all supposed to do the same thing, boost NAD+ levels in your body. And while the results are really striking, you can see right here on this chart that after 2 weeks, 2 of the supplements, NMN and NR, basically doubled the amount of NAD+ in the blood, but the third one, a similar sounding molecule called NAM, had no significant long-term effect at all. So the point is, even within the same category of supplement, the specific form you're taking matters a lot.
Okay, so if the science itself is this nuanced and frankly often conflicting, what are the actual rules that govern this massive industry? Why is it allowed to be so confusing for the average person just trying to be healthy?
Well, the answer really comes down to one single piece of legislation, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, usually just called DSHEA. And a single, most important thing you need to understand about this law is that it regulates supplements as a special category of food, not as drugs. That one distinction, it changes everything.
And just look at the effect this had. Back in 1994, when DSHEA passed, there were about 4,000 different supplement products on the U.S. market. Today, it's over 80,000. It has just exploded, which has led a lot of scientists and public health officials to argue that these 30-year-old rules they're completely outdated for a market this huge and complex.
So, working within these food regulations, how can companies legally market their products? This is where we get into the subtle art of saying something without really saying it.
The key to this whole thing is something called a structure/function claim. This is a legally allowed statement that just describes how a nutrient affects the normal workings of the body. But here's the kicker.
What it absolutely cannot do is claim to treat or prevent a specific disease, because as soon as it does that, it's making a drug claim, and that's totally illegal for a supplement.
Okay, let's look at some real examples to make this crystal clear. A company can say, calcium builds strong bones. That's a normal function. But they can't say it helps prevent osteoporosis. That's a disease. They can say their product helps maintain joint health, but not that it reduces the pain of arthritis. You see the pattern here? It's this incredibly fine line, and the entire industry is built on walking that line perfectly.
So after we've waded through all the tricky science and the complex regulations, where does that actually leave us? Well, it brings us back to a very simple, fundamental idea: the difference between real food and a formula in a pill.
You know, I love this quote from Purdue Extension because it just gets right to the heart of it. Real food isn't just a list of isolated nutrients. It's this complex, synergistic blend where all the different parts, the fiber, the vitamins, the minerals, they all work together to help your body absorb and use them in the most effective way.
So, the most important takeaway here is to adopt a food-first philosophy. That complex matrix of nutrients you get in whole foods is something an isolated pill often just can't replicate. Now, supplements can absolutely be a useful complement for certain deficiencies or goals, but they should never, ever be seen as a substitute for a healthy, balanced diet.
So we'll leave you with this thought. The goal here isn't to say all supplements are bad. Far from it. It's to give you a new toolkit for thinking about them. So the next time you see a bottle promising you the world, maybe you'll ask the right questions. What's the specific science behind this exact ingredient? What are the rules it's playing by? And what is that very carefully written label really, truly saying?